My daughter's first birthday was supposed to smell like buttercream frosting and sound like a room full of people who actually loved her. Instead, it smelled like my sister-in-law's perfume, the expensive kind she charges to a credit card she can't pay off. And it sounded like the clinking of champagne flutes she ordered without asking anyone. My daughter, Lily, turned 1 on a Saturday in April. She had no idea what a birthday was. She just knew there were balloons, and balloons were the greatest thing that had ever happened to her. She kept reaching for the nearest one with both hands, her whole face scrunched up with concentration. I had been planning this party for 2 months. I'd reserved the private dining room at the Greystone, a farm-to-table restaurant downtown where I'd built a real working relationship with the owner, a woman named Sandra, over 3 years of booking corporate team dinners. I handle financial compliance for a regional healthcare network. When a billing audit threatens to unravel a $40 million contract the night before a board presentation, I'm the one who fixes it. I work in numbers. I work in documentation. I work in documentation. I work in consequence. But the most exhausting audit I've ever had to run wasn't on a hospital account. It was on my sister-in-law, Nadia. Nadia is my husband's younger sister. She's 31, sharp-tongued, and absolutely convinced that the world owes her a front-row seat to everything. She posts about building her brand on Instagram while living in an apartment she can't afford on a salary she doesn't really have. She calls herself an influencer. She has 4,000 followers, most of whom are other people who also call themselves influencers. She rotates between 3 credit cards and a Venmo account she never settles. Last Thanksgiving, she told everyone at the table that she was finalizing a brand deal with a major skincare company. In February, she quietly borrowed $1,800 from my husband, and said it was for a business investment. He didn't tell me until 3 weeks later. The money never came back. I never forgot it. But I kept my mouth shut because his family has a way of making the person who asks questions feel like the problem. My mother-in-law, Beverly, runs interference for Nadia the way air traffic control runs interference for a pilot who keeps ignoring the weather warnings. She smooths things over. She reframes. She'll look you dead in the eye and say, "That's just how Nadia is," with a smile that means, "and you will accept it." I accepted it for 3 years. The week before Lily's birthday, I confirmed the guest list with Sandra. 12 people. Close family, 2 couples we've been friends with since college, my own mother. I ordered a custom smash cake from a local bakery, vanilla with passion fruit curd, because Lily goes absolutely feral for anything fruity. I bought matching linen napkins. I made a playlist. I even printed little menu cards because I wanted the table to feel like the occasion it was. The morning of the party, Nadia texted my husband, "Can't wait for tonight," bringing Kayla and Jess. They've been dying to check out the Greystone. Why, Agesh? My husband showed me the text and said, "It'll be fine, right?" I looked at him for a long moment. "Call her," I said. "Tell her no." He called. She didn't pick up. He texted. She sent back a string of heart emojis. We drove to the restaurant. Nadia arrived 22 minutes late with 2 women I had never met in my life. Kayla had a ring light clipped to her purse strap. Jess was already recording a video when she walked in the door. They breezed into the private dining room like they were arriving at a launch event, air-kissing Nadia's cheek, scanning the table layout, pulling out chairs without a word to anyone. Lily was sitting in her high chair at the head of the table, already working on a piece of bread. She looked up at the commotion and blinked. Nadia leaned past my mother, who she did not greet, and plucked one of the printed menu cards off the table. She made a sound in the back of her throat. "Oh, this is so cute," she said in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. Then she turned to the waiter, who had just appeared at the edge of the room. "Hi, can we get a bottle of the Whispering Angel to start? And actually, do you have a Billecart-Salmon by the bottle? The Blanc de Blanc? The Blanc de Blanc?" The waiter glanced at me. I was the name on the reservation. I gave him the smallest shake of my head. Nadia didn't notice. She was already showing Kayla something on her phone. My mother-in-law appeared at my elbow. "Let's just let it go," Beverly said quietly. "It's 1 bottle." She just wants to feel included. She brought strangers to my daughter's first birthday, I said. They're not strangers, they're her friends. I don't know their last names, Beverly. She touched my arm, her voice dropped. Please, don't make this into a thing. Nadia's going through a hard time right now. You know how she gets when she feels left out. Just put it on the card and we'll move on. That's what family does. I looked at my mother-in-law's hand on my arm. I thought about the $1,800 a hand on my arm. I thought about every dinner where I paid and said nothing. I thought about Lily, 11 months old, sitting in that high chair with breadcrumbs on her chin and absolutely zero awareness that her first birthday party had already been hijacked. I'm going to speak to Sandra, I said. Excuse me. Sandra was in the service hallway just past the kitchen. She knew me well enough to read my face before I said a word. Their reservation is for 12, I told her. 3 extra people walked in without an invitation. I need their orders on a completely separate check, separate ticket, not attached to my account in any way. If they try to transfer anything to my tab or hand my name to the server, decline it. Immediately. Sandra nodded once, the kind of nod that means already handled. Also, I said, if anyone at that table orders off the premium list, the reserve wines, the tasting menu additions, those go on the separate check automatically. Of course, she said. I went back to the table and sat down next to my husband. Lily had moved on from the bread to aggressively mashing a piece of roasted sweet potato. I put my hand on the back of her chair and took a breath. Nadia ordered the Billecart-Salmon. She ordered it anyway, directly to a different server who had come to refill waters, speaking quickly and confidently as if the earlier conversation hadn't happened. She also ordered the burrata appetizer, the pan-seared halibut, which was a $48 entrée, and a cheese board for the table that nobody else had agreed to. Kayla filmed the cheese board. Jess filmed Nadia filming the cheese board. My mother sat across from me with the careful expression of a woman who has witnessed this kind of thing before and is choosing her battles. My husband ate his bread and did not make eye contact with me. I understand why. He loves his sister. He hates conflict. He is not a bad person. He was just hoping, the way he always hopes, that it would somehow dissolve on its own. Lily's smash cake came out at 7:15. The staff dimmed the lights. We sang. Lily looked at the flame on the candle with an expression of genuine philosophical uncertainty, then looked at me, then reached directly into the frosting with both hands. Everyone laughed. Everyone who was actually there for her anyway. Nadia took a video and posted it before we even finished singing. The caption said, Auntie's girl. Shh. The gray stone is everything. She tagged the restaurant, not Lily. The restaurant. At the end of the night, the server set 2 black folders on the table, one in front of Nadia. Nadia stared at hers for a moment like it had said something rude to her. Wait, what is this? She said. Your check, the server said pleasantly. No, I think there's been a mistake. We're all together. The reservation party's check is separate from the walk-in guests, ma'am. Sandra set it up that way at the start of service. Nadia's eyes cut across the table to me. I was signing my own receipt. I didn't look up. Marina, she said. My name, clipped and sharp. Did you do this? I set my pen down. You weren't on the guest list, Nadia. Neither were your friends. They're my guests. This was Lily's birthday dinner. I planned it for 12 people. You brought 2 more without asking. The table had gone very quiet. Kayla was no longer filming. Jess was studying the centerpiece like it contained the answers to important questions. Nadia looked at the folder again. Her face did that thing it does. The quick calculation, the pivot to victim. I can't believe you're doing this right now. On a baby's birthday. In front of everyone. You're welcome to sort it however you'd like between the 3 of you, I said. I'm going to get Lily's coat. I heard Nadia whisper something sharp to Kayla. I heard Kayla say, and I want to be precise here because I replayed it in the parking lot. I literally only have like $40 on me. I didn't know we were paying. My mother caught up with me near the coat rack. She touched my shoulder and said quietly, Good girl. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days later, I got a notification from our joint Venmo account, the one my husband and I share for household expenses like the cleaning service and the grocery orders. Someone had requested $340 from the account. The note said, "Dinner." It was Nadia. She had my husband's Venmo handle from years ago. She sent the request to the joint account, not his personal one, clearly banking on the fact that he'd just approve it to avoid the conversation. $340. I sat at my kitchen island and looked at that little green notification for a full 30 seconds. Then I opened my laptop. I work in compliance. I document things for a living. I know exactly what a paper trail looks like and exactly what it's worth. Over the next hour, I put together a clean, factual record, the original $1,800 loan that was never repaid, the Venmo request with timestamp, a screenshot of her Instagram post from Lily's birthday tagging the restaurant, and a short written summary of the events of that evening, including the 3 uninvited guests and the unapproved orders. I sent it to my husband first, not as an accusation, as information. He read it. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'll handle it." He called Nadia that evening. I was in the other room, but I could hear the shape of the conversation, his voice staying level, hers rising, then a long silence, then him saying, "No, not this time." He declined the Venmo request. He also told his mother what had happened, the full version, with the documentation I'd put together. Beverly initially said what Beverly always says, that Nadia was just going through a hard time, that I was being rigid, that family has to give each other grace. My husband said she charged herself a $48 halibut and a bottle of champagne at her daughter's birthday party and then sent Marina a Venmo request 3 days later. "That's not a hard time, Mom. That's a pattern." Beverly went quiet. I don't know exactly what shifted in that conversation. I wasn't there for all of it. But something did shift because that Friday, Beverly called me directly, not my husband, me, and said she wanted to talk. We met at a coffee shop near her house. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. She ordered a decaf and held the cup with both hands and said, "I know I've made this harder than it needed to be." I let her talk. I didn't fill the silence. "I kept thinking if I smoothed things over, it would eventually even out," she said. "But it never does it?" It wasn't really a question. We didn't hug when we left. But we looked at each other for a moment at the door, and something between us, that constant low-grade tension that I'd been carrying for 3 years, just quietly released. Not fixed. Not finished. Just put down. Nadia, for her part, did not take any of this with grace. She posted a vague booking Instagram story that night, something about finding out who really has your back when it matters. She followed it with a quote graphic about toxic energy and another one about choosing peace. Her 4,000 followers liked them. Kayla commented, "You deserve so much better, babe." Within 2 weeks, Nadia had quietly unfollowed me on every platform. I noticed the same way you notice that a headache you've had for so long you forgot about it is finally gone. You don't realize until the absence. Kayla and Jess, for what it's worth, did end up splitting the check that night. Or most of it. I heard through my husband that Jess paid with a credit card and Kayla apparently had to Venmo her back in installments. Nadia's card covered her half of the dinner, which tells me she had access to funds she was choosing not to use when it wasn't her event. Which, honestly, is a data point. Lily has no memory of any of this, obviously. She's one. She remembers the balloons. Last week, she figured out how to say baboon, and now she says it about everything. The ceiling fan, the dog, a piece of toast. We've stopped correcting her because it's genuinely the funniest thing we've ever heard. Her birthday photos are on our fridge. The real ones, the ones where she has frosting on her eyebrows and both hands buried in the smash cake and her whole face is lit up like the world just made sense for the first time. I look at those photos every morning when I make coffee. That's what I'm protecting, not a dinner reservation, not $340. That right there. That is what I'm protecting. Here's what I want to say to you, because I know some of you have been sitting with a very similar kind of weight. I spent 3 years telling myself that keeping the peace was the same thing as being the bigger person. I told myself that absorbing Nadia's behavior quietly was a form of generosity. That the $1,800, the awkward dinners, the constant small erosions, that swallowing all of it made me gracious, patient, mature. It didn't. It just made me someone who could be counted on to stay quiet. And people who want to take from you will always take more from someone who stays quiet. The thing that finally changed wasn't a blow-up. It wasn't a confrontation in a parking lot or a long emotional text I sent at midnight. It was just a folder. 2 checks instead of 1. That's it. That was the whole move. Every consequence that followed came directly from Nadia's own choices. The Venmo request she sent, the post she made, the pattern she couldn't stop even when she had every reason to. I didn't have to become cruel. I didn't have to perform anger. I just had to stop absorbing the cost of someone else's choices and let those choices land where they actually belonged. There's a name for what I was doing for 3 years. Behavioral researchers call it the sunk cost trap. The longer you've been investing in something, the harder it is to stop, even when it's not working, even when it's hurting you. You keep going because stopping feels like admitting that all those years of effort were wasted. But they weren't wasted. They were tuition. They taught me exactly where my line was. I know where my line is now. And here's the thing about drawing a clear line. It doesn't feel like power in the moment. In the moment, it feels terrifying. It feels like you're breaking something. But what you're actually breaking is the expectation that you will continue to pay for someone else's bad decisions indefinitely. That expectation is not a relationship. It's a subscription you never signed up for. If you are in a family dynamic where someone consistently treats your generosity as an obligation, where saying no makes you the villain and saying yes makes you invisible, I want you to hear this. The folder moment is available to you. It doesn't have to look like mine. It doesn't have to happen at a restaurant. It just has to be the moment where you stop letting the check get consolidated, where you stop letting someone else's mess get added to your tab without your consent. Separate the check, in whatever form that takes for your life, and then let gravity do what gravity does. I want to hear from you. Have you ever been put in a position where someone assumed you'd just cover their choices because you always had before? Tell me what happened. Tell me what you did. And if you've been sitting on your own folder moment, scared to draw that line, drop it in the comments, because you might be closer than you think. If this hit something real for you today, hit subscribe. I'm Marina, and I stopped absorbing costs that were never mine to carry. The tab is closed. I've thought a lot about the moment I walked back to that table after talking to Sandra. My hands weren't shaking. My voice didn't break. I just sat down, put my hand on the back of Lily's high chair, and watch her smash a piece of sweet potato like it was the most important job in the world. And honestly, in that moment it was. That was the whole point of the night. That right there. What I'd come to understand, slowly, and the way you only understand things after you've paid for them, is that what happened with Nadia wasn't really about a dinner. It was about a pattern I had quietly agreed to every single time I stayed silent. Every time I covered a tab I didn't owe. Every time I accepted Beverly's "that's just how she is" and let it settle into my chest like something I was supposed to carry. I had been teaching everyone around me exactly what they could expect from me, and what they had learned was Marina absorbs it. Marina adjusts. Marina will not make it uncomfortable for anyone. That's not generosity. I know that now. Generosity is something you choose, freely, from a place of actual abundance. What I was doing was something else. I was managing other people's comfort at the direct expense of my own, and calling it kindness so I didn't have to look at what it really was. Nadia didn't become who she is in a single night. She became who she is because every system around her, Beverly smoothing things over, my husband hoping it would dissolve, me paying and staying quiet, kept telling her that her choices had no real cost. The folder changed that. Not dramatically, not with a speech, just a folder, 2 checks, the cost landing exactly where it belonged. And here's what I've noticed about that kind of moment. It doesn't feel victorious, not right away. It just feels terrifying and then, quietly, correct. Like something that needed to happen finally did. The Venmo request she sent 3 days later, that $340 with the little smiley face, told me everything I needed to know about whether she'd learned anything. She hadn't. But that wasn't my problem to solve. My only job was to stop making her consequences disappear before she had to feel them. I think about the 3 things I'd want to pass on to Lily someday when she's old enough to understand what any of this means. First, your decency is not a liability. Being someone who tries to do right by people is a strength, not a weakness. But it has to come with clarity about where your responsibility actually ends. Second, the people who call your limits rigidity are usually the ones most inconvenienced by them. That discomfort is information. Third, you do not have to become cruel to protect yourself. You just have to be willing to let the check land correctly. Beverly's words at that coffee shop stayed with me. I kept thinking if I smoothed things over, it would eventually even out. I understood exactly what she meant because I'd been doing the same math in my own head for 3 years. The problem is that it never evens out. It just compounds. Quiet costs always do. Lily says, "Baboon, now for everything. The ceiling fan, the dog, a piece of toast." We let her. Some things are worth protecting exactly as they are.